Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today we're gonna talk about American visas. I know it's a tricky question for a lot of nationalities, but if you're watching this video, you've probably already made up your mind about studying in the US, or maybe you already have an I-20, which is like an invitation letter from an American university. So there is no way back. All you have to do is just to prepare your story, prepare your documents, and go there and get that visa. And I'm gonna give you tips and tricks that are gonna help you on your journey. So if you're interested, continue watching. Again, congratulations if you've already got into an American university. If you have, please comment down below which university you got into. We're gonna congratulate you all together. Today I'm gonna share tips that are based on my experience, because when I was back home I was dealing a lot with the US visas, and they're also based on the stories of our students who got accepted to American universities and came here. But first things first, we need to go ahead and check the visa stats for your country. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go to travel.state.gov and look at the refusal rates. There are no refusal rates for F1 specifically, but there are refusal rates for non-immigrant visas. And basically the assessment criteria is pretty much the same. So when you're interviewing for a non-immigrant visa, the officer's task is to suspect that you're an immigrant. Your task is to prove that you're a genuine student or a genuine tourist, whatever. When we're talking about non-immigrant visas, they're mostly tourist and student visas. So let's look at the refusal rate. There's this file with adjusted refusal rates by nationality. And let's look at 2018. Okay, here are the countries. Let's look at some nationalities that are pretty common on this channel. For example, Brazil. Your refusal rate for your country is 12.73%. What this means is that out of 100 people who apply, only 12 get rejected. This is like good average. I've worked with a lot of countries with 12% refusal rate, and if you're a good student, like if everything is fine with your documents, you're gonna get your visa. India, 26%. This is fine. Again, if you follow all the tips that I'm gonna give you today, I don't think you would have a lot of problems. But if you're from, I don't know, Iran, for example, it's 87% refusal rate. That's a lot. Like, the chances of getting a visa are really, 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 really low. Or for example, Ukraine, 40% refusal rate, which is also like on a higher end. If your country has 20 to 30% refusal rate, you should probably be fine if your university is a good university and you have all of the documents in place and stuff. But if it's like 60–70% refusal rate, it's gonna be harder. But again, just watch my video carefully. There are some things that I'm gonna talk about. First thing is your university ranking, and yes, it affects your chances. I would say if you got accepted to Stanford or Harvard or MIT or other top universities, your chances of getting a visa are like 99%. Because yes, you're a genuine student. You cannot just get into Stanford just, to come to this country. You have to be a really good student. You have to prove the admissions committee that you're really willing to study here. So that shouldn't be a problem, but we had a student who got accepted to Stanford's master's degree. She went to her interview and they asked her, where's the money coming from for your education? And she wasn't ready for that question. She wasn't preparing for the interview at all, and she couldn't answer it. She was like, my parents and my grandparents, and she couldn't really give them a good answer, and they thought she didn't have money, and they refused her visa. And then she came to us and we helped her reapply, and everything was fine. But things like that happen. This is why you need to really prepare for your interview. Let's go back to the university ranking. There are some universities or colleges, especially community colleges, that are really low ranking. They have really high acceptance rate, like 95%, like if you pay, you get accepted. And they have really low tuition fees, like $3,000–4,000 a year, and low quality of education. So what happens on the interview? You come to the interview, you talk to an officer, and he asks, okay, you go to this community college, which is like really low ranking. Why don't you get education in your own country? Because you have so many good universities. Why would you travel to the US? Why would you fly for like 10, 12, or 20 hours, depending on where you are, to get this education? Like, what is the reason behind it? And if you cannot give them a legit reason, they're gonna suspect that the reason is you want to immigrate or work illegally or whatever. So if your university is lower ranking, please come up with a good answer. I got accepted to both like top ranking and a little like average universities. In my case, my reply was, when I was preparing for the interview, I basically wanted to say what I've already taught in my personal statement. I wanted to study economics, and my country where I'm from, we've only been in the market economy situation for less than 30 years, which means this is not the best place to study market economy, but the US is. The US is where everything has been born, the world of businesses, the world of marketing, and even like an average university in the US, in terms of practicality, is a lot better than a university in my country. So that was my story. So something that will prove why you need to travel so far away from your own country to get education. So this is number one. Number two, your I-20. I-20 is your official letter of acceptance from your university. You need to get the hard copy of it. So the university would need to FedEx it to you, or DHL, whatever, and you're gonna take it to the interview with you. Before the university issues the I-20, they would need to see your bank statement, what it means. So for example, you got accepted to a program that costs $20,000 a year, and they would want to see your financials for the first year of your education. So if the tuition fees are $20,000 a year, $10,000 a year is an average like cost of living in the US, like Florida is $11,000. Say you're in Florida, and let's say you didn't get any financial aid. So the total you need to show on your I-20 is $31,000. If you got some financial aid, like $20,000, you would need to show $11,000 only. But if you didn't get $31,000, and before they would send you the original I-20, they would need to see a bank statement where you have $31,000. And you send a copy to your university, they send you an I-20, and you take your bank statement, you take your I-20, and you go to the embassy for your interview. So getting your I-20, the hard copy, is a crucial step of any application process. Get it as soon as possible so you can start working on your application as soon as possible. Next thing, remember I told you that you need to make sure you know where the money is coming from. Work on that story. So there is a 99% chance your interview is going to be conducted in English. And the office would want to make sure that you actually speak English, that you will be able to comprehend in English, that you're going to be able to study in English. So really prepare for that interview and work on a story where you're going to tell why you're going to the US and where the money is coming from. Because if you won't be able to explain it, then you might have the same problems as our Stanford student that I've talked about early in this video. So basically talk about maybe your parents who are lending you money, or maybe you've saved money while working. So please, 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 this is really important. The next tricky thing is your background. What I've seen a lot is if people have military connections or connections with governments, they might have some additional problems. And the additional problems might be either visa refusal or administrative processing. And administrative processing is, so basically when you come to an interview, you get an answer straight away. Normally, they would either tell you your visa is approved, give us your passport, and we're gonna return it with a visa sticker, or they're gonna tell you your visa is refused, goodbye, you can reapply. But sometimes they do an extra background check on you, and it's going to be administrative processing. They normally say it's going to last 2 to 4 weeks, but I've also seen like 2 months, I've seen a year. So it can last a while. And my advice to you, if you have any connections with like military, government, etc., please apply as early as you can. Normally you get your I-20 in April or May, apply right away. Because if you get administrative processing in June, good chances you're gonna get your visa before September and you're gonna be able to travel. So this is a thing to remember. Your story. The next thing, I mentioned already, your story. They're also gonna ask about your background. And what they're looking for is they're looking for consistency, and they are looking for your story to be genuine. What is an ingenuine story? Hi, my name is Anna. I've been studying IT for 30 years and I've been working in IT, and now I decided to study painting. This is my first trip abroad. I'm doing masters in this university that nobody knows. Like, why? Why won't you start painting in your own country first? Why so drastically change your profession? Like, there are some things that they're looking for that look suspicious. So basically the best option is when you graduated from your bachelor's, maybe worked somewhere, and then you're doing masters that is really close to whatever you've done before. If you're changing completely, if you haven't studied for more than 10 years, if the university is low ranking, like all of those things add up, and you need to work on your story, like why you're doing that. And I totally understand that sometimes you're doing like economics and then you decide to study biology. But tell them the story. Tell them what made you study biology. When we talk about personal statements, I told you that you need to write real stories that converted you. Like, hey, I don't know, I got this disease and I started digging into biology and I realized I could do this, this and that. And I've done some practice before, I've done some conferences, I've done some biology classes, but now I want to do this professionally. And yes, I've done 10 years of economics, but now I know how I can apply my management knowledge in building a biotech company, but I need basic bioeducation for that. Like, this is a consistent story. This makes me believe that you really need that education. And especially if you're getting into a good university, I would totally understand why you're doing that. So this is very important. Again, work on your story. Train it with a camera. Train it with a friend. This is a real interview. This is talking to a real native speaker, especially if you don't have that experience. Like, please practice beforehand. The next thing, your future plans. I know a story of a Harvard MBA student who was interviewing for his student visa, and when he was asked, what are your plans after graduation? He said, I don't know. Maybe I'm gonna stay in the US, maybe I'm gonna come back to my own country. And the officer became really suspicious. He was like, are you gonna immigrate? What are your plans? Like, again, his task is to suspect that you're an immigrant. Your task is to prove that you're a genuine student. Your task is to prove that your number one goal of going to the US is to get a top-notch education and then come back to your country. So yes, plans can change. You're writing something in your personal statement about becoming a manager in an international corporation, but then a month into your studies, you realize you want to be an entrepreneur. Nobody's going to punish you for that. Same with a student visa. Like, yes, maybe now you have plans of coming back. Then when you graduate, maybe you have plans of going to the UK to work. Like, it's okay, but please be careful with whatever you want to do. Like, if you push too much into like immigration stuff, that could be problematic. And the last but not the least is your past travel history. For student visas, it's not that important, but if you're taking a short course or if you're taking English classes, again, that could be a problem. If this is your first trip abroad and it's a 20-hour flight or a 12-hour flight, that could raise questions like, why wouldn't you go to the UK first? Why wouldn't you study in your own country? Why don't you travel the world first? Like, why the US? If you're still at a stage when you're still planning, maybe I would go, maybe I wouldn't, I would highly advise you to travel. Go to the UK, take a language course on linguatrip.com, go to Malta, go to Europe, go to like whatever, but travel. Have this consistent travel history, because I don't know a lot of people who would be like, especially like later in their lives, like 30 plus, never traveled abroad and then they realize they want to study in the US. I don't know how that happens. Like in my case, I became passionate about studying in the US after I visited the US. I was like, oh my God, I love this country, I love this culture, I want to study here. So please travel before you apply, before you go to your student visa interview, because it just looks better and it gives you better perspective on the world. So traveling is everything. Let me summarize everything that I've mentioned and let me just name top mistakes that students make during their interview. First, not knowing where the money is coming from, not telling the right story. Second, weak English. Like, come on. You're going to study in the US, you need to prove that your English is good. So practice. The next thing, mumbling. Sometimes they ask you questions that you're not prepared for and you'll be like, this is not bad. But again, if you practice beforehand, you're gonna minimize the risk of mumbling and not having the answer. No prior travel history might be a problem, so travel as much as you can. Be careful about talking about your plans, and also be careful not to lie. Like, don't lie during the interview. This is the rule that you have to follow, because they see when you lie, and once the officer is suspicious that you're lying, you're gonna get refused. And the last but not the least, just the way you communicate. Keep an eye contact, be open, don't try to joke, because, well, especially in a foreign language, it doesn't go well too often. So just be open, tell your story, prove that you're a genuine student, and fingers crossed for you, Let me know, guys, if this was useful. If you have any questions, please comment down below with your questions. Thank you so much for watching this video up to the very end. Again, my main goal is for you to achieve your dreams and achieve your goals, and I hope this way, with these videos, I'm able to help you. Thank you so much. If you're not yet subscribed to this channel, there's a red button, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next videos. Bye!
Progresscard Educational Consultants Private Limited, your trusted partner for overseas education.